So ladies and gentlemen, to moderate this session, I'd like to welcome back to the stage Mr. Rohan Lobo, partner, Deloitte India. Let's put our hands together and welcome Mr. Lobo back. Ms. Lobo, I'd request you to please take the seat that's right in the center. Thank you, sir. And our esteemed panelists, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Aparna Rao, Country Head and Board Member, CBS India, Kargil. Welcome, ma'am. Ravi Krishnan, Chief Administrative Officer, Goldman Sachs Services India. A round of applause for Mr. Krishnan. Vijaya Raman Subramanian, Vice President and Managing Director, Verizon India. Let's put our hands together and welcome sir with a big hand. Keep that applause coming, ladies and gentlemen. As I welcome our next few panelists as well, Vineet Dwivedi, Global Head, Alcon Global Services. Sandeep Podar, Global Head of Record to Report and India Site Lead, Philip Morris International. Sheenam Ori, Managing Director, Broadridge India. And last but definitely not the least, Akash Jain, India Leader, Cat Digital Caterpillar. Welcome to each of our panelists. Mr. Lobo, I'm going to hand it back to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Please do have a seat. So first of all, I'd like to thank all our panelists. It's a pretty distinguished, extremely distinguished panel. I can just feel the stage a little heavy, given the number of experience, a number of years of experience that the panel carries. And I'm looking forward to a lot of discussion on this one. So maybe Ravi, maybe we'll get started immediately in terms of your vision for GCCs and how you've seen GCCs grow in India.
Sure, Rohan. First of all, good morning, everybody. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having us. Rohan, I just wanted to call out something that has stuck in my mind for a long time, particularly in the last couple of months when GCC has become such a hot topic. 2 years back, in I think July of 2022, Swaminathan Anklesare Iyer wrote an op-ed in Economic Times calling out the growing power of GCCs. And he spoke about that it's a less known fact, there's not enough data available, but the power to materially contribute to the GDP of this country is been unrecognized, but now needs major recognition. It's been 2 years since then, and it's a story that all of us, those of us in the GCC industry certainly knew about that, but now it's out there in the open and it's now a really powerful state of affairs that are there. You already heard the number that is going up in terms of the, from in terms of where we are going to be in 2030. The Goldman Sachs research itself pegs it at somewhere close to about $100 billion. That's the number. What I'd like to do is to give you a quick sense of what are the key drivers that have brought us out here? And I think that is really important. And I'd rather like to do that through our lens and also a couple of stories, because I think all of us have very similar kind of, if you like, statements to make about how GCCs have developed. For us, talent, without question, talent is has been the number one driver. But back in 2012, when we had grown, we had started off in 2004. We were about roughly 7-8 years in our journey. Our CEO had come down at that point in time, and we did our usual presentation and, kind of they went through the whole deck and all of that. And he kind of just, gently kept it aside and said, okay, tell me what you really want. What do you think can really make a difference? And to us, at that point in time, the major difference we thought that would come about was if we could hire quants, if we could hire high quality, data scientists and analysts to power not just our trading systems and algorithms, which is what typically you would associate with a financial services firm, but being able to deploy that across the board in all of our areas of our business. He said, done. In 2 weeks' time, 2 senior members of the management committee were there in our offices, and since then, the transformation really, really began. And to me, it's those kind of things that are very pivotal. Look, the culture of what we have, we've always been we are a 155-year-old firm. Culture is very important. We are very integrated with the rest of the globe. But that one particular factor changed the dynamic of how we started to integrate the true power of engineering and technology skills. All of us have significant presence in terms of our technology skills. So that was one story. And the second is, again, why talent? Because talent, again, the ability to hire at scale. We found ourselves going to many campuses engineering campuses, and it's like a big show, like a big rock show that you go, everybody goes there, you have day 1, day 2, day 3 kind of hiring processes and all of that. But really, it's a pretty heavy duty process, and we know that we had to absorb huge engineering talent given everything that we want to do here. So we decided to create our own coding exam. We first started off by having people come into our centers, and now we've got to a point where we have the exam written by people at their homes. And last year we had 120,000 people write that exam. Why am I talking about this? Because one of the key requirements as for us together as GCCs is the ability to really elevate the talent in this country and draw from multiple parts of the talent profile. Because typically we would have gone just to the very high profile schools and high profile engineering colleges, but we democratized this. And to us that was a second key pivot of how we change the talent landscape. I'll add a third because it is impacting leadership, and it also impacts what we think is a vision of the future, which is how can you and how should you start to create global leadership positions out here? We have about 120 global leaders out here who represent, who manage global functions, who sit on committees. I sit on 2 global committees. My CEO is the chief operating officer of the engineering division. So, all of us, for us, engineering is a 3 key thrust, and that's really, really critical. So having somebody from that sector to be the CEO from here is very powerful for us, and I think that is what we've been striving for, and that's what we really need to push for. So it's a leadership presence, I think, is really key. I want to talk a little bit about the future. Now, you specifically called for what is a vision. I was there, I don't know if Sanjeev's still out here, we were there in that conversation with Amitabh Kant, and the stories of the kind of organizations, and look at the diversity of what we have out here on this panel. You have financial services, you have telecom companies, you have firms like Cargill, you have consulting companies. You have variety. But the variety that is coming in is just tremendous. Airline companies, courier companies, Dunkin' Donuts. You name it, the kind of companies that are coming here. What does that mean? It means that for the future, if any sensible corporation in the globe does not have an India GCC strategy, they are leaving a massive untapped opportunity on the table. And I think this message is going out very, very clearly to a lot of people. Very, very clearly going out to a lot of people. And the second element is the fact that COVID and how we transformed ourselves during COVID has been one of the most powerful, if you like, paradigm shifts that have occurred for us in this industry. Great thanks to our telecom partners who are here. Great thanks to the government of India through the DOT and others. Our infrastructure stood up and was able to deliver at scale, at power, and at speed seamlessly. And that has created a different wave of, if you like, expectations of how businesses are growing here. Sanjeev called out to some of the product companies that are now starting to establish here. We talk to a lot of private equity firms. When one private equity firm sees one example of a product company with just 200 people transforming the quality of the product innovation that's starting to occur here, they suddenly say, hey, can I do this in other portfolio companies? And before you know it, there are five different companies that they have consolidated together and brought it. So the innovation and the GCC growth is happening in multiple dimensions. The last point I will make, and I also want to address what Sanjeev had asked for, which is we obviously have to recognize the growing power of AI. As a statistic, this is both through NASSCOM and through anecdotal evidence, 56% of our billing, of the contribution to GDP, of our contribution to GDP, comes through engineering services, 56%. And it's been growing at a CAGR of 12% in the last 8 years. We have the capability to, and we have the engineering centers of excellence out here. We have to seize the moment. In the year 2000, we had the advantage of Y2K and the internet boom, but I will call us passengers on that bus. I think we now have the opportunity to be drivers on the bus with this. We have the opportunity of drivers of the bus, and I want to say that in order to do this, we have to collaborate with each other. We have to collaborate with the startup community. But above all, we have to collaborate with our educational institutions. You cannot leave this massive proportion of talent untapped, unused, because, I mean, there are enough stories of many of our domestic partners where people have been hired, but don't have the ability to start up because business scale is not picking up. And are those individuals as effective? So it's our responsibility to see that we create the right kind of academic environment to see that they are appropriately skilled, brought up. Then and only then we can leverage the AI boom that is likely to come. Probably overhyped in the first 3 years, but we have to make that investment. And after that, we then have the ability to take our GCCs and convert ourselves to what I want to coin global transformation hubs.
Ravi, thank you very much. From moving from being a passenger in a bus to moving in as a driver of a bus, I think that's a fantastic analogy to our aspirations of what we want to do. Maybe if I move on to Aparna. Aparna, in that same theme, how are global companies looking at GCCs as strategic assets, and across the customer experience or transaction or, engineering, research and development, how are they looking at us as strategic assets?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Rohan. Very happy to be here. Although when you said the stage is very heavy, I hope you weren't referring to our weight.
No, I was referring only to my weight, but...
But yeah, nice question. And I will draw upon a little bit of what Ravi said as well. See, earlier GCCs were viewed as, executors. And the parent organization would say, do these things, we will check and we will monitor it. And that quickly changed with domain knowledge being built. And then we started getting viewed as these talent hubs or options that we could use to leverage that knowledge. I think the game changer in all of this is when the business context or when the business knowledge started being grown in the GCCs. That led to us being seen as truly partners to the different businesses or in transformation. And very quickly, I think we moved from people who would execute to people who are owning processes, the global process or organizations, or even innovators and sponsors of global programs in the organization. The trends that you were speaking about of how we will be viewed now in the future or we are being viewed currently, couple of things. I think you mentioned it, so I will steal that. As a competitive advantage, as a strategic partner, as a transformation partner, see, love it or hate it, GCCs are here to stay. And I think companies are realizing that if you don't leverage this, the conversation of small companies now, it's not those massive companies that are setting up GCCs. I think businesses have realized that it is a must, it's an absolute necessity to survive in today's VUCA environment. And I can give you a couple of examples of how GCCs are now changing the way they're perceived by their organization. Today, when companies are thinking of setting up an AI ML COE, where do they go first, right? We've just set up one in Kargil, so I can share that. We have a cybersecurity hub. The strategy support for businesses as they're reorganizing or thinking of their next wave is being supported by the GCC in Bangalore. Or even customer insights to analyze that. Where better would you place a team like that that has a view to all the internal processes, to all the businesses, to all the functions? So I think companies are now seeing us as a must-have at the table, without which you're missing critical information and critical action that you can take. In fact, I'll take it one step further. We are pretty much the second headquarters or a mini version of most of the parent companies, a digital twin. And I'm referring to another conversation since morning where we were discussing global roles are being done out of here. Successors to your executive teams are being done out of GCCs. GCCs are viewed as truly influential in their ecosystem. You can influence policies with the government, partner with different organizations or different partners in the ecosystem like service providers. GCCs don't need to do everything on their own, right? Because we also want to work on more high-value activities that make a difference and make a difference to the bottom line of the organization. So I know of organizations that are really leveraging your third-party service providers really well. We are doing it too, the first level of support in most of our things. But also startups, also universities and academia. GCCs are also being viewed as disruptive change agents. So if you want to drive transformation, you want to drive a huge change across the organization, what better place to do it than the GCCs, right? Talent hubs, global leaders, tier 2 cities, because I know there's a whole lot of conversation on, are we putting too much into our GCCs? Are we relying a lot on our GCCs? What is the backup? And within India itself, I'm seeing this hub and spoke model. You have the main location maybe in Bangalore or Delhi or Pune, and then you have hubs, Mysore and Hubli and all the other locations. So that is a trend that I think will pick up for sure. Yeah, but I think if I have to think about the future of how we are being viewed, I think I would use the word unstoppable. GCCs are unstoppable.
Unstoppable and very quickly getting a seat at the table that matters because of the disruption and potential possibility of driving disruption through a centralized location. Vijay, innovation is at the top of everybody's agenda across the world, and talent drives innovation. So what are your thoughts in terms of how innovation and talent trends are going to affect GCCs and how that will contribute to the country also?
Thank you so much. First of all, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, sitting amongst such wonderful leaders in this forum, so thank you. I think just, continuing on what Ravi and Aparna just spoke about, in terms of talent, I think, firstly, if you have to look at the landscape in India, we at Verizon, we have been here for 24 years now, close to 24 years in India. And the gravity to build a center in India was talent, right? And of course, it started with the whole IT services boom. We just heard the honorable keynote speaker in the beginning. 1985, you gave the example of how Texas Instruments set up their shop here. So talent has been, the center of gravity for most of GCCs or even large enterprises to set up their shop here. What we have observed over the last decade, or a little more than that, is that it's not just talent that does transactional nature of work. And I think she touched upon the point of understanding the business, the domain, but also the very innovative spirit in general that we observe in our day-to-day lives in India. At some point in time, we were all building teams, of course, for cost arbitrage for a large part. But now I look at it, and we look at it at Verizon very differently. The way we look at India, first of all, Verizon India is the second largest entity for Verizon outside of headquarters, right? We are a US-based telco, one of the largest telcos in terms of revenues in the world. And for us to do business from India is a tremendous achievement in itself. Now, the second thing, if you have to keep in mind, is when I spoke about talent particularly, when we look at it today, we look at it as a low-hurdle, affordable innovation center. Now, what does that mean? It essentially means that the hurdle to innovate in India is actually very low because you have the talent, you are also able to partner very well with the ecosystem, which could be your service integrators, or it could be academia, it could be startups, it could be a variety of cohorts that supports us today as an ecosystem. The other thing is it's extremely affordable to set up an innovation hub in India, right? So today, that's how we look at ourselves. Today we run a Gen AI and AI Center of Excellence. I encourage all of you to just Google Verizon and Gen AI. You will see an article that came out as recently as yesterday by our CEO. And a good amount of that work was done in India, right? So we have a large center of excellence with about 300 odd engineers doing that work day in and day out, and actually making business impact. That's the important aspect. So when you look at talent, in India particularly, I think the availability of talent is in terms of the talent pool in itself, of course, is large. I think you spoke about it, second largest AI talent pool available across the globe. And that is something to be very proud of. So talent obviously drives innovation. I'll also give you another example. I think the advent of the whole startup ecosystem in India, at one point in time, I remember not too far back, maybe about 5 to 7 years back, GCCs were losing talent to startups, where we were, people were, of course, building out their startups. Now there are plenty of them. Many of them have been very successful. And we would lose talent to them because they were establishing their organizations. They were establishing their capabilities and building for the local challenges. Today, it's a very healthy ecosystem where we are able to attract talent from startups. In some cases, we are able to integrate startups as is into our organizations. And, of course, some of our talent moving out and doing work for the Indian ecosystem. So it plays out both ways, and it's actually very healthy, right? To build the economy of the country, and more importantly, to create opportunities and also provide mobility opportunities for talent to go and do different things. At the same time, they bring in very unique thought processes when they come in from outside. At Verizon, we have actually deployed solutions that we have learned from the local market for our customers in the US. Believe it or not, it's amazing what you can do with that kind of talent. So talent actually is a very, very important aspect. Like I said, started with low-cost arbitrage at one point, all the way to now. I can speak for ourselves. We are actually one of the most important centers for our company today, right? And there's acknowledgement all the way from the top of the house. Every business president and leader visits us at least once a year. They make it a point to be here because they see the gravity of work that gets done here. The last thing I'll say in terms of how it's helping India, per se, is one, of course, creation of jobs. Then, like I said, the mobility, providing opportunity for people to learn more and build more. One of the things that I'm always very proud of about India is we are a superb application country. The moment a new technology or a new process or something new comes out, we are very quick to adapt. And I think the demographic dividend that we have today as a country in terms of the age and the population is actually, we are at a very pivotal moment to capture that. And I think all of us in this room have a responsibility to make sure we nurture that talent and only provide, actually strengthen this whole ecosystem further to be able to do more for the country. Now, this is just the GCCs. I think, Ravi touched upon a point, doubling almost, I think by 2030, the expectation is the GCCs will contribute about 2% of the GDP. That's about 100 billion, but that is just the direct impact. Imagine and also just factor in the ancillary, job opportunities that we create, not just within the GCCs, but the support ecosystem around it, and the CSR activity that we do. The contribution to the communities. At Verizon, we are driven by our core purpose, which is driven by 4 pillars: people, our customers, shareholders, and the society. So giving back to the communities, again, very important. And a lot of GCCs are doing a phenomenal job there. We at Verizon have already clocked about 38,000 volunteering hours so far in this year, which is giving back to the society in some form or the other. And then, of course, our CSR activities that happen. Not only are we strengthening the local economy by creating jobs, we are also strengthening the foundations of the country by providing capabilities for people, underprivileged people, by doing STEM education drives, by contributing to the society at large. And then, which then becomes your future talent pool. So we recently ran a community immersion program where we brought in the government school kids and we ran a 5-day workshop on AI for them. And you should have seen the excitement in them. So what we are doing is fueling the curiosity, fueling their excitement about what future holds. And we're very proud of that. So, but I think that's what it is. The talent, of course, is the gravity for India. But today, I can tell you that many GCC leaders that I meet and also their leadership teams in their headquarters, when we meet them or host them in our offices, they are looking at India as an innovation hub, as a hub that can create disruptive practices, drive customer experience, drive customer engagement, have an impact on the bottom line and top line. So tremendous amount of work. So I think talent has a lot of work ahead of it, and we have a tremendous opportunity with Gen AI and whatnot that's coming out in the future. So I actually am very, very excited and optimistic about the future. And talent is a very crucial aspect.
Thank you, Vijay. I think some key takeaways from what you said is, the productivity per unit of cost is high, and therefore you're able to innovate at much more economical value. And the whole point of innovation is actually experimentation. You're potentially going to fail many times. And then also
that's why I call it low hurdle, affordable innovation, which is, of course, you need, most of the times you need a safety net for failures. And I think you can do a lot of experimentation here in India and, do a lot more of that. So absolutely right.
perfect. And
Startup community has a term, fail fast, fail safe. I'll add one more word, fail cheap.
feel cheap. And then also take advantage of the network effect that we have across the service provider ecosystem and the startup ecosystem. Sandeep, if there was a GCC anywhere in the world, what would be the considerations in choosing a location? Why would India, be a choice? Why would it continue to be a choice?
Well, I think, you were talking about, and thanks first of all for inviting me to the session. Good to be among a lot of known faces. And we talk about digital twins and how strategically GBS is important, right? I think one reflection, if you look at today, most of the GCCs, they have, the main hub is as big as the corporate headquarters. All the matured shared services, they occupy a very critical and strategic space within the entire strategy of the organization. And I think if I look at the overall implant and imprint of shared services, of course, cost and efficiency is given. But I think in the last 10 years or last 5 years, especially post-COVID, I think the demand for GCCs is more to drive innovation and to really build those capabilities, of course, to kind of incubate those talent. And especially if I look at the location strategy, I've had an opportunity to kind of lead centers in many locations, in many companies, and I think one trend really comes up is that historically, I think when we start, we really want to be near shore. So you see a lot of Eastern European countries, especially Hungary and Poland. Of course, you have other countries as well, but these two are really big. At the same time, you also have Philippines and you have Malaysia as well, which are really attracting a lot of talent and opportunities. But of course, the big one, of course, is India. And no wonder that you are doing this in Bangalore. The conference is being done in Bangalore. It speaks itself about the location strategy of the GCCs. In fact, if I look at last 3 years, the maximum number of GCCs are coming from Europe and mid-sized companies in the size of 200 to 600. And I think that's a purple spot right now because most of the large organizations, already they have a footprint regarding the location. So if I have to kind of, pick up from something what you said earlier as well, right? If you don't have a GCC footprint, then I think, you're missing on the overall strategy. And then, of course, India is at the fulcrum of that place. Now, within that, I would also believe that, we need to also go back to where the talent is and not kind of bring talent to where our centers are. So I think as a part of the next gen of location strategies, we are going to tier 2, tier 3. And I had some experience in the last 2-3 years that Mysore, for Pondicherry, we went and looked at some French language capabilities. We were quite happy and satisfied. I think Mysore, and we did talk about, I was surprised that we have got so many centers. I think Sanjeev is not here. We have got so many centers in Hubli and Harvard. I also heard about, Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad is really coming up. I know a couple of my friends and colleagues who have reached out to me and they have gone ahead. I think Gift City is also becoming a little big. I think Bank of America and a few other companies are setting up. Now, in terms of the whole capabilities, I think this whole next generation of shared services, this AI is really going to be a big disruptor. And how do we really use data and analytics? I think that's going to be a game changer. So for me, when I look at the overall location strategy, I would have to accept that we are still evolving as a company. We have a regional strategy. We have operations in Latin America, in Buenos Aires. We have centers in Europe and Asia. I think we are still evolving in India. We do a lot of services that we buy from service providers. But I think that's where our role comes into play. And I think I'm taking some inspiration from all of you as well, that you have really grown big. I think that's for me to kind of take it up.
Thank you, Sandeep. Akash, if I were to go to you next, Cat Digital is one of the most respected entities within the Caterpillar environment. What have been your lessons from that, and how has the ecosystem effect helped you through that?
Sure. Happy to be here, guys. And I concur with all that you've heard from distinguished panelists. Specifically about CAD Digital, before going in there, I would just talk about an analogy that is very close to my heart when we talk about GCCs. So there's this concept of a car, right? We always used to get one of the back seats in the car to start with, maybe 15 years back. Then the change happened, and we started to get seat next to the driver in the front row. Then change happened, and then we started driving the car. We were given the keys, and then, okay, you take the keys, return the keys in the evening. Now the change is, take the keys and car is yours. That's the change that has happened in the ecosystem that we are here in India. Now, talking about how we have achieved that change, specifically around CAD Digital, I would say, the equation is different, right? The equation started with cost arbitrage. Then we added to that niche talent working on very, very niche technologies. Then we added business domain knowledge. Then we added functional skills, new ways of working, capability building, etc. This became the recipe to create the capabilities across 360 degrees in terms of product development, digital product development. The entire mindset shift from services to leading projects to now engineering products happened, and that became the recipe. And it's no different in CAD Digital. In the last 4 years, if I look back, we have grown close to 10 folds. India, as the CAD Digital GCC, we are close to 40% of global CAD Digital. Every single software product that we put together, our contribution in terms of engineering that product will be in the higher 50s, if not more. So that's the tremendous change and transformation we ended up driving for CAD Digital in India, aligned to the priorities and must-wins of global CAD Digital, aligned to the enterprise. All that we do today, there's a laser-sharp focus towards the priorities of the enterprise, and therefore we've been successful. Again, the talent is key. I think a lot of my great friends here talked about the talent and the skills, the tech skills. What has been the differentiator is the focus on building that business domain knowledge as well. How these technical skills are being leveraged in terms of writing code for a product, and that product, how that product is helping the business at the end of the day, and driving productivity for our customers, dealers, and the enterprise as a whole. So this whole 360-degree view in terms of defining and developing capabilities, be it vertical capabilities or horizontal capabilities, in which the way we are organized in the center drives the success of this center. So today, we pretty much have every single function and the functional capability to drive that function from here. So that's why this whole shift has happened. And it wasn't easy. I mean, the biggest challenge that you will see is the cultural change. Be it technical team, the cultural change would be from the services and project mindset to now driving product engineering mindset, as well as cultural change that you will have to drive through in the company itself, because it's a big change for them as well. So both these areas required a lot of change and transformation, openness at both ends to be able to drive this. Like I always say, in at least in Caterpillar has been on the face of this earth for the last 100+ years. And CAD Digital, in its current shape or form, is sort of a, with the culture of startup within the ambit of a 100-year-old company. So we were able to do that cultural shift, and that's why where we are. So yeah.
Thank you, Akash. I think aligning to the business priorities was what I took away, making sure that you're culturally aligned. And I may just add, having seen Akash at close quarters in Cat Digital, a strong sense of leadership also in terms of setting the course right and choosing what to say yes to and what not to say yes to. I think these are some things that I've...
Yeah, Rohan, you were just kind.
Sheenam, you've got decades of experience, and that
He
experience...
just called me old, okay?
But
You called me fat earlier. and
no, no,
now-
no. Experience-wise, but a customer centricity, both from the perspective of what a GCC has with its parent company and how a GCC supports the end consumer of the parent company, has got many dimensions, right? So please, would you tell us a little bit about how customer centricity plays a role in the future of GCCs as we go forward?
I think that's a very important topic for any business organization. In your service profit chain, right, your customers are right there in the middle, right? You have associates, you have customers, and you have investors. So customers are right there, and if you have happy customers, your ecosystem kind of thrives because you then move it back into the associates. Associates are hungry to do more. Investors are happy. From a GCC perspective, and specifically from a Broadridge perspective, I think I would divide my answer into two parts. One is understanding what your customer wants is really critical to your success. And there are two ways in which we are driving it right now. One is we've got customers sitting right here, okay? And instead of going all the way to the US, where the headquarters is, can you create a zero distance between the customers in the locality? So we're doing a lot of outreach programs. We're actually setting up a local account management function in Broadridge, which actually will now start talking to the customers end to end, figuring out what their problems are, what issues they've got, what functionality of our products they could use better. Are they using our products in the right manner or not? And take that conversation forward. What we've also realized is there are a lot of global leaders sitting here, right? So there are a lot of decision makers for whether your product can be bought is something that is applicable to the customer or not. And what better way, just saying, okay, let me go to Mumbai or Pune or Chennai and meet the customers directly. So that's one aspect of customer centricity. The second aspect of customer centricity that I want to talk about here is the fact that you have almost all of us will have our operations teams, our transaction processors sitting here, and the engineering organizations. And what better way for us to learn about what our customers are doing and using if we don't learn from those operations people, right? So we've had a lot of excellent use cases that have flown into the product organization as to how the product can be better. We've had a lot of issues that have flown in, saying the customers are having problems over here. We've also had a lot of product managers flow from the operations team into the larger organization. And that brings me to the third aspect of customer centricity as a vision for all of us, right? One of the things that we have done in a very focused manner is build the product management function, because the product management function actually allows you to get a view into what multiple customers are wanting. It allows you to understand what is the regulations and the regulatory compliances that are happening. And considering the business that we are in, we are a highly regulated business, right? So understanding the world from a regulatory perspective is very important. And third is what is the technology that can be used, right? So over the last 18 months, we have built, I think, 49 product managers sitting in India. And these are people who talk to the end customers directly. So a lot of work happening around that space. Now, all of that doesn't happen without the culture aspect, right? What we have launched about 18 months back is a program called I Am Boundless. To your point about, all of us have seats on the table, but do we have the right voices on the table, right? And to enable that right voice, you have to have a degree of ownership. So one big tenet for us from a culture change perspective is ownership, right? And ownership is, the outputs that you deliver, the outcomes, how is the customer using what you delivered, and the last piece is the impact. What is the impact that you've created, right? How did it impact customer NPS? Is this customer now going to become your reference customer or not? So we've been through that journey in the 18 months. The next pillar of that tenet is really entrepreneurship, and that's something that we are starting to. As a culture, we're very poor in risk-taking, right? If we want to say no, we won't say no, we just say yes, and then maybe and stuff like that. So how do we build that aspect of saying, hey, listen, I don't think this is the right approach. So that plus, combining it with what we are seeing and stuff like that, creating sandboxes and allowing people to fail early, fail fast, is something that we want to do now in the next 18 months. Leading to the fact that we will be seen as equal citizens of the organization. I think at large, every organization, parent organization today knows that India needs to have that equal citizenship. It's left to us to inspire that trust. And I think that culture aspect, therefore, makes that difference. If I have to go back to, what would I want to what Sanjeev sir said earlier, I would say global business houses.
Global business houses. But Sheenam, if I were to just add, how does diversity play a role in the customer centricity that you're building?
So that's a topic which is very close to my heart, and I'll be very conscious of the time. I think diversity as a business case, Rohan, is very critical to customer experience, right? There are a lot of different people in this room, different ages, different genders, different states that they come from, different ways in which they will experience my product. And if I don't have that subset in my product technology team, I would never be able to anticipate how they will use my product and how they will experience my product. So the core business case of diversity is that if you have diversity in your product technology arm, in your engineering arm, in your software engineering squads, you will be able to, attract different kinds of customers and really provide them with an experience that they want. So I'll keep it at that.
Thank you, Sheenam. Vineet, can you share a couple of examples of how you have generated competitive advantage and what lessons to learn from that so that India generates competitive advantage for its parent companies?
Thank you, Rohan, and good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with such esteemed panelists here. Me and Sandeep keep bumping each other in many of outside India as well, some of the conferences. And that gives me a lot of pleasure if I talk about Elcon and looking at the names of the companies here. Our company is not that visible. And what we do, maybe I'll take a few seconds to make you aware, it's about eyes. So we help everyone see brilliantly. So anything which goes in the eyes is something which we take care. So it's any cataract surgery, surgical equipment, phaco, LASIK. We make those equipments, contact lenses, your dry eye products. And I think that's where when we started our journey 5 years ago, so I heard 25 years, a lot of big years here. But Elcon started their journey 5 years ago in GCC. I was the second employee to join. We call it AGS, Elcon Global Services in India. And now I have a privilege to lead all the centers, India, Malaysia, Poland, and Mexico City. Around, from a headcount perspective, 2,200 people. But more important is not the headcount. I think the important is how we are placed. So some examples I would say, 5 years ago when we were starting, as a leader with your core team, you set a vision. How would you like to see your team after? So we did our blue sky thinking session, and there was a board where I still remember 5 years ago where we wrote down, there should be a day when our CEO talks about our capability in the Wall Street or the capital market day. It was 5 years ago, you are first, second employee, you put this as, yeah, we may get it done. But I'm privileged to say that Last year when our CEO, he was asked in Capital Market Day along with the CFO, what are your 3 core things which gives you a confidence that you will achieve the target of being a double-digit company in coming years? His first thing was, we have built a world-class shared services organization which is our own. Second was R&D product pipeline. Third was digital. I think that is one of the testimony that how it can work. Other thing which worked as a competitive advantage, which I would say most of our GCCs are bringing in, how do you bring more speed and simplicity in the overall scheme of things? And I think that's very true for Alcon. One of the global vision we had, how do we bring more speed in whatever we are trying to do, being a part of the full value chain. So right now we have hosted 12 functions. R&D is one of them. We have quality, intake, a lot of functions. So even when there is a complaint coming from customer, how do we analyze that complaint and bring that back to the R&D so that our product development cycle can be better? That's one of the other things which we do. Even for R&D, as you know, eye care is also a regulated, highly regulated environment. You have long cycle time, you need to do clinical trials, all those things. But how do we increase the speed to market? First time in history of Alcon, which is 75 years history, we have opened a R&D lab in India outside US. So this is the only lab which we have opened, and this helps the whole company move forward in our whole cycle time reduction of product testing, development. Even the software designs are happening now. We are going to start now that from India. So I think in the overall platform, if we look at how we as GCC is playing, I think some of the fellow panelists mentioned about seat on the table. I think we also had the same journey in 5 years. Having a seat on the table was the first step. Second was having the voice on the table. I would take it a little further, which is having the influence on the table. And I'll give you an example. I think it might be happening in many of the companies here. How many times as a GCC leader, you are being asked to give a feedback during the appraisal or performance cycle of your parent organization people? I think that's the influence which GCC in India can bring. Having global leaders sitting out of India, we have that. So whenever the performance appraisal happens, there are conversations happening. How do you think about this XYZ? Because you guys work together. I think that's the influence which one of the thought we had earlier is coming true now. I think those are some of the things which are really making India GCC powerful. If I compare, because I have an opportunity to manage the other centers as well, being an Indian, I think it's always a pleasure and an honor to represent India. What difference we bring, I think, and this is my personal view, our secret sauce is passion. I think the moment we put word India, the emotion and the passion which comes, our talent which is key. In the moment you say, okay, if you give a purpose, the moment you tell them, if you are doing this, this is not you are doing for yourself to just get another promotion. We are working, whether developing a product or setting a capability, how India can be placed in the overall scheme of the things. I think that was the purpose and passion combined really made a wonder for us. Right now, if I look at Alcon Global Services, Alcon has been in India before GCC as well, so 25 years. We are completing 25 years in India for all the medical devices, working with doctors. But since the time we brought Alcon Global Services or our GCCs, now in the whole scheme of things at Alcon level, we are operating from more than 70 countries, and we sell pretty much 140 countries the products. India, in the whole thing of Alcon, is seen into top 10 countries. India, GCC is the only one which we have across all the, outside the US headquarters, the only place we have so many functions, so many capabilities being worked off India. So I think that's where I would summarize how the whole competitive edge has come. One last thing which I can add here, Rohan. One strategy we worked since the beginning was to stay with the business. So when we were building all the 4 centers across the globe, we ensured that we are not going away in a new entity. We did not open a new entity. We stayed with our commercial operations. That really helped us to gain the business knowledge, to learn the business language, our associates who are working in R&D, they are actually able to go and visit a doctor when a doctor is doing a surgery. Even we can go to the operation theater. And that will not happen if we are not staying with the business. So we are, I would say, not, the earlier word was, okay, you are our extended arm, you are our in-house centers. Now the word which our CEO said, you are no more extended arm, you are no more this, you are Elcon. So I think that's the difference, no more seeing it as arm's length or something, being the core organization, driving it to the core strategy.
Thank you so much. GCC being really at the center rather than an outpost. I think maybe we'll have one question in terms of what, in one word, what would you feel as the outlook of GCC? Just in one word, how do you feel about the future outlook of GCCs in
I think
India?
it's the future talent base of the
Talent
companies.
base.
Yeah.
Global transformation hubs.
Global
Transformation hubs.
global transformation hubs,
Global value creators.
value creators.
I would say make significant impact to the business. I actually would, I think they've covered it. So I would say leave a fingerprint on the business from India.
Yeah, fingerprint on business.
Have to think a little differently, yeah. Center of gravity, maybe, for the organization.
Center of brilliance, that's
That's a
where
nice
we bring
one.
it, yeah.
Value drivers.
Value drivers. I was speaking to one of a GCC leader the other day, and he said, if you set up a center in India, it's called a Global Capability Center. If you set up the same center in Israel, it's called a Global Transformation Hub. So on that note, I think I want to thank every single one of you panelists to have made time from your busy schedules and come and share your experiences and perspectives with all of us over here. Thank you very, very much. And thank you all as the audience for being wonderful hosts. And at this time, I would request for a big round of applause for all our panelists. Thank you.